Hello and welcome to my channel. Today we are looking into the disappearance of Bethany Decker. July 29th, 2011, Bethany Ann Decker, nee Littlejohn, I don't know which one's her married name and which one's the maiden name, born 1989, left her husband's parents' home in Maryland and returned to her apartment in Ashburn, Virginia. Her boyfriend, Ronald Roldan, says he saw her there later that day. She has never been seen since. While Decker did not show up at her job or classes she took at a nearby university, her absence was not noted for another 3 weeks because messages to her friends, purportedly they continued to be posted on her Facebook account. Somebody was posting messages on her Facebook account even though she was gone, pretending to be her. After her family noted her absence otherwise, they found her car parked near her apartment. Apart from the Facebook post, there had been no other evidence she had done anything since the day she was last seen. They reported her missing to the sheriff's office. She was 5 months pregnant at the time of her disappearance. Extensive searches have found no trace of her or the child that she was to give birth to. Her boyfriend, Ronald Roldan, had a criminal record prior to her disappearance. He was arrested in 2015 in North Carolina, 4 years later, and charged with attempted murder of another girlfriend after he shot her during an incident in 2014. So 3 years later he shot her. He has not said anything about the Decker case. After she recovered, the victim claimed on the Dr. Phil show that he had made statements to her that might implicate him in Decker's disappearance. Well, that would have been a red flag to run before, but yes, I don't know. Why would you stay? Anyway, Roldan pled guilty to 2 lesser charges in 2016. After he served his sentence, he was expected to be deported to his native Bolivia, but instead he was charged with Decker's abduction upon his release in 2020. So this is 9-10 years later, and returned to Loudoun County. The incident has been the subject of a segment of the Investigation Discovery Channel series Disappeared. So you can go there to watch it to get information, it says. Maybe. We have Roku TV, so maybe you can find it somewhere on there by searching for it. I don't know. A native of Fredericksburg, Virginia, Bethany Decker attended GMU, George Mason University, in Fairfax after graduating high school. She majored in global and economic change. While working full-time, she went to college. Wow, during that time she became pregnant by, I don't know how to pronounce his name, Emil Decker. I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing it right. An Army National Guardsman. The two married in 2009. Their son was born 6 months later. I don't know if she was in love or if they got married because she was pregnant. He was often deployed to Afghanistan with his unit for months at a time. And for those women that are married to men who are in the military, or men married to women in the military that stay home and raise their children and wait for them to come home and are faithful to them, that is just incredible. That is just incredible. I know it's incredible for the men that are serving, that are fighting for this country, but it's also wonderful that they have spouses that are so wonderful. It's really sad when something like this happens. During those times, Decker often left the boy with her in-laws in Columbia, Maryland, while she worked and attended classes. So she's busy going to work, going to college, getting her act together, and that's just incredible. While working at a Centreville Italian restaurant, Decker met Ronald Roldan, a Bolivian immigrant then around 30, and began an extramarital affair with him. That's a bummer. That's a bummer. By late 2010, there were strains in the Deckers' marriage. Bethany moved to a separate apartment in Ashburn, Virginia. The relationship with Roldan soon followed, and he moved in with her. According to her family, Decker quickly found that Roldan was abusive, possessive, and controlling. Several times a day, he demanded that she send him a picture of herself from her cell phone to show who she was with. Well, she began an extramarital affair with a man who no longer trusts her and doesn't think she's going to be faithful to him. Her parents began developing a plan to get her out of the relationship. By the end of the year, she was pregnant. In January 2011, Emil came back from his deployed for a month-long leave. Near the end of that period, he and Bethany went on a vacation to Hawaii for a week. Ooh. They returned on January 28th and spent the night at his parents' home in Maryland. Emil's parents were unaware of the couple's marital difficulties. The next morning, Emil saw Decker before she went back to the Ashburn apartment. Roldan said he saw her there later that afternoon. Since then, no one else is known to have seen her. During that day, Decker called her employer to confirm her work schedule for the next coming week. The last known contact she has had with anyone other than Emil or Roldan. On February 2nd, Emil's leave ended and he returned to Afghanistan. Friends who came to see him off at the airport noted that, unlike previous such occasions, Decker was not there, and she had always been there before, it sounded like, so they attributed her absence to the couple's marital problems. Wow. Friends and family say Decker did her best to keep in contact with them, but due to her busy life balancing her classes and what was to be her final semester with her full-time job, they had gotten used to not hearing from her for several days at a time, so that they were not worried. As of February 2011 began with any news from her. And I don't know if you've ever gone to college, but even going to college and working part-time is just so hard. And if you have a full-time job, you pretty much need a job where you can study while you're working, because you have to study all the time. And there's so much schoolwork. However, later in the month, several of Decker's friends called her mother, Kim Nelson, saying that they had received messages from her via Facebook account that did not seem to them to have come from her. By February 19th, not having heard from her daughter herself, Nelson asked her parents, who lived in Ashburn, to drive by and see if she was there. Decker's Hyundai, I don't know how to say that word, Hyundai, was still out front, but it was parked at an unusual angle with one tire flat and noticeable dusty, so they could tell it hadn't been driven. That was not the condition it had been 1 week earlier when the grandparents had last driven by. No one answered when they knocked on the door. Decker's grandparents called the sheriff's office and reported her missing. Investigators found that she had not used her bank accounts or her cell phone since the last day that someone saw her, nor had she reported to work or attended her classes. They initially focused on Emil and Roldan, since both of them might have had a motive to harm her due to the love triangle they were involved in. With the help of the Army's Criminal Investigation Command, CID, they were able to reach Emil at his remote post in Afghanistan and talk to him on the phone. Later, they were able to have him return to the U.S., where he spoke with law enforcement at length and took a polygraph test. Roldan had moved out of the apartment shortly after her disappearance, since the lease had expired, and gone to live with his mother in Centreville. He told law enforcement that he had just assumed that she had gone back to live with her family when she failed to return, but investigators became more interested in him when they learned that he had a prior criminal record, including an arrest for identity theft and later convictions for public intoxication and destruction of property after a 2006 incident where he smashed a woman's car window. He also reportedly gave them inconsistent answers to questions about when he had seen her car parked outside the apartment. In March, law enforcement searched a field near the apartment complex. They obtained a search warrant for Roldan's current residence, specifying murder as a possible criminal offense on the affidavit. Amongst the items seized For forensic examinations were several cell phones, a laptop computer, and some documents. However, law enforcement were not able to develop any evidence from this material that might have helped them locate her. Roldan later stopped cooperating with the investigation. He was subsequently been described by law enforcement as a person of interest. Emil later obtained a divorce from his missing wife. It has since been reported that he will no longer talk with investigators unless his lawyer, who says his client has nothing to hide, is also present. No record was ever found suggesting that Decker had given birth by her expected due date later that summer, although the Loudoun County Sheriff's Office distributed to the public pictures of what she might look like near the end of her pregnancy. We feel we have probably interviewed folks in this investigation already that probably have information that we would like to have and have been reluctant to hand that information over yet. Well, I hope they finally gave them the information, even if they felt like, hey, I don't know if this is important or not. I hope they've given them the information. Sheriff Steve Simpson told the local newspaper in 2011, so we're hopeful that as the days go by that they'll realize that if they have information, no matter how insignificant they think it is, they will give it to us. So, and I don't know if I'm going to read all that, but it says a year later, Roldan made his only public statement on the case through his attorney. And then it talks about, and you can pause this and read it. I don't want to read all of it, but people try to get Roldan to take a polygraph, and they want to hear what happened, and I don't think he ever did. Anyway, you can pause it and read it because it's so lengthy. So, and it says he began another relationship in 2014 with Vickey Willoughby, a woman he met in Manassas, I don't know how to pronounce that restaurant. I could be chopping that name up. She said that Roldan later grew controlling and that she attempted to flee the relationship by moving to Pinehurst, California a few months later, but Roldan found out and followed her there. Their relationship turned violent. While being physically assaulted by Roldan, Willoughby pulled out a handgun she had hidden in the living room to protect herself. She was able to shoot Roldan twice, although he continued to struggle and eventually gained control of the gun himself, shooting Willoughby 3 times, once in the head. Both survived, although Willoughby lost one of her eyes to the head wound. She was not charged since investigators believed she had been acting in self-defense. He was charged with assault with a deadly weapon, assault on a female, and discharging a firearm in an occupied dwelling. After being released from the hospital, he was taken to Moore County Jail and held on $1 million bail. Detectives from Loudoun County visited Roldan in jail to ask if he was now interested in speaking with them about Bethany's disappearance again. He referred them to his attorney. So, in April 2015, he was additionally charged with attempted murder over the incident with Willoughby. His attorney said he intended to plead not guilty to the charges. So, yeah. Wow. On November 9th, 2020, the Sheriff's Office obtained a warrant for Roldan's arrest for the abduction of Decker. CSO returned him to Loudoun County from North Carolina upon the completion of his sentence there. As of November 10th, he remains held at the Adult Detention Center on no bond. And there's the references, so you can come here and you can click all these different things to read more about it. And there's a picture of her. And here's some stuff if you Google search it. Boyfriend charged after 9 years. New details emerge. Ex-boyfriend denied bond. Boyfriend. I can't go to these because if I go to these, when there's ads, it makes my voice break up while I'm recording the video. So there's a Crime Junkie podcast on it. So if you want to listen to that, that's probably very interesting. So there's so much. And there's some videos. And then here's some photos. Wow. I guess, I don't know. This would be a photo of her, I'm sure, right? Because that was a photo of her. So, and this is Charlie Project. Says she's been missing since 2011 from Loudoun County, Virginia. She was 21 years old, 5 foot tall, 130 pounds, 4 to 5 months pregnant at the time of her disappearance. Her due date was August 7th, 2011. She has a small tattoo on her left ankle, and they've got a picture of the tattoo in the case summary, and her ears are pierced, and her maiden name is Littlejohn. So this talks about her disappearance too. And it says she lived in an apartment on Orchard Grass Terrace in Ashburn, Virginia. Her husband was on leave from military duty in Afghanistan that month. They had been married about 18 months and had a 1-year-old son who lived with Decker's parents. The couple took a vacation in Hawaii just before Decker's disappearance and returned to Virginia on January 28th. Decker's husband returned to Afghanistan on February 4th. She wasn't at the airport to see him off, so. And it says that was uncharacteristic of her. Her family reported her missing February 19th. So she'd already been missing for some time by the time they got it, because they weren't able to contact her other than the Facebook. Her car was found parked. This says in her garage. After her disappearance, there hasn't been any activity on her bank accounts, email, or cell phone since she went missing. She didn't go back to work. She didn't attend her classes. It talks about who she was dating, and they had been living together for only 2 months when she went missing. Decker's family said she told them he was controlling and abusive and that he had threatened to cut her open. In March 2015, he was charged with attempted murder of another girlfriend. He brutally beat her and shot her 3 times, and she broke her neck and lost an eye. He pleaded guilty to reduced felony charges of assault with a deadly weapon. Wow. It said only the day before Roland's projected release date, authorities announced they were charging him with abduction in Decker's case. A photo of Roldan is posted with his case summary. In December, Roldan was additionally charged with second-degree murder in her case. He is awaiting trial. Since she went missing, there's been no activity, it says. So it said that before. And her husband has since returned to Afghanistan and taken custody of their child. Her mother hopes she's still alive, but yeah, that's so sad. And then there's Reddit, and this one's Reddit. It says it was posted 6 years ago, and it says this case is really, really close to me, and I'd never seen anything about it, so I thought I would do a small write-up. So her name is out there. I went to high school with her, and my sister was friends with her family through band. My friend group intersected with hers because of this, as well as a few of my own close friends. From everything I know in high school, she was well liked and got along with people and had a gorgeous smile too. Long-time reader and first-time submitter, so please be gentle. It said she was a GMU student who married Emil Decker. Hope I'm saying his name right. She had a son with him who lived with her parents, so she could attend school full time, and she also worked as a waitress. It seems, oh yeah, she wouldn't have time to study if she's being a waitress. She'd be working really hard. It seems her family was used to her being very busy and not contacting them for certain amounts of time. This is important. Before her disappearance, Emil and Bethany went on a trip to Hawaii before he had to return to his deployment, and she did not accompany him to the airport, which her parents described as unusual and reported her missing. Neighbors reported seeing her enter her apartment around January 29th. Her car, keys, and purse, banks, and cell phone were all at the apartment. But I don't know if they're going to know the date that they saw her. Now you see Bethany had a boyfriend as well, Ronald Roldan. She was 5 months pregnant, and it could have been either due to the time Emil was last home from a deployment, so Ronald is stated to be the last person to see her, and he refused to take a polygraph test. Not that we can put too much stock in them. I don't know. Well, Ronald was uncooperative. Emil was even though he was, I don't know what this is saying. Emil was even though he was deployed overseas at the time. Shortly after her disappearance, someone was accessing her Facebook and sending messages. It has been released. It hasn't been released what exactly was said, but it was reported that it didn't sound like her at all. So you can read more about this. So, yeah. Yep. If he was this brutal to that girlfriend, it really makes me wonder what he did to Bethany if he was responsible. So it talks, he actually snapped her neck, and she, the girlfriend, reported him as being volatile and prone to anger outbursts over seemingly nothing. She had been planning to leave and felt unsafe in her own home, which led her to hiding guns around the house. And then he managed to get the gun from her. Wow. And this talks about paying child support, but I think he's just a jealous outrage. Yeah, so that talks about it. And then there's more on this one. And this one is the thing, it says, an article, we received notice from the sheriff's office that they obtained a warrant for Ronald Roldan for the abduction of Bethany Decker. And soon after Decker's disappearance, January 29th, the sheriff's office learned she had been in an abusive relationship while her husband was away at the Army National Guard, was deployed. Until now, investigators never charged Roldan or named him, but you can read this. It goes on about it. It talks about his girlfriend that later lost an eye in the shooting and things like that, but there's that, and you can pause that and read it if you want to. I'm skipping over to the next one now. And this one says, the one plus side to Dr. Phil is you can go back and watch how the actual killers acted when they thought they were safe. It says he's been locked up in North Carolina for a while. She wasn't reported for some time after she disappeared, so she was essentially vanished without a trace due to lack of any sort of evidence available when she was reported missing. No DNA, no sign of a struggle, etc. It's probably because they haven't found a body. It was hard to prove murder without one, but now that they've seen the things he's done, maybe they can. This was one of those cases with a very strong suspect. It was fairly obvious, but not enough evidence. So, and this has more links and info. So, yeah. It talks about him being charged and being released. So, and people asking questions, why did they wait so long? So, yeah, it's 21 years old. And this one has a lot. It says, it just seems to go on forever. They have a lot of information on this one. It says, I saw an episode of Disappeared, and I have no idea what happened to Bethany. My theory is that the boyfriend might have done it a little bit about the Bethany Decker case. And it's a lot of information. So if you want to go on here and read more about it, but they really put this together well. But I think we've read most of it already. She left behind her passport and her ID. After her disappearance, someone posing as her used her Facebook account, but yeah, we already knew that. So, and they had been living together for 2 months, and we knew that already. So, in March 2015, he was charged with attempted murder of another girlfriend, and we knew that already. So, but you can read this because this one has a lot. So, and it's got links too. I like the way they worded it. So you can go out there and read it. It has the background. It has the disappearance. And it says right here, while working at the restaurant, she met him, and there were strains on her marriage. She moved to a separate apartment. The relationship soon followed. He moved in with her. According to family, she found out that he was abusive, possessive, and controlling. Several times a day, he demanded that she send him a picture of herself from her cell phone. Her parents began developing a plan to get her out of the relationship. By the end of the year, she was pregnant. So that's horrific, isn't it? You stay in an abusive relationship, and now nobody's heard from you again. So, yeah, you can pause this and read it, and I will scroll down some, or you can go there and find it and read it, but I will scroll down because I love the way this is worded, and I love that they have links and everything. So, like, yeah, and then there's other comments. And this person says, I think it's obvious that he killed her, maybe not even intentionally, but I'm pretty sure he did it because here he's got a violent outburst and everything. He was known to be physically abusive, to abuse her, and you can definitely kill someone by punching them in the head, throat, because he broke the other one's neck. He has enough criminal energy to do something like that. And it says, yeah, because he can't control himself, And then there's some more links, but I would definitely think he was very upset that she went to Hawaii with her husband. And she might have been, there it says maybe he was angry she went to Hawaii with her husband while living with him and pregnant with his child. I can see an abusive, jealous person being so enraged that they would lose it. So, yeah, you know, but they haven't found her body, and if maybe unless they found her body and it's one of those Jane Does and they don't know it's her yet, but I don't know. So, yeah, that's just horrific. So, if you have any information, but I think if you have any information, his history or any history of abuse that he's done, or you know bad things about him, things that he's done, or you have any information about this case and you feel like it's not relevant, you should contact those authorities and let them know. You could probably email them or call them or email a couple of different people so that you make sure they get the email and contact them or go in for an interview to talk to them and make notes of the things you want to talk about. But even if you don't know if it's relevant or you don't know if you don't feel like maybe it's important or you're not sure, you should contact them. And please don't forget to stop and pray for her family and her loved ones and all the people that have been affected by this and the people that are hurt and are having to live with pain and sorrow. And thank you so much for tuning in to my channel. Have a great day. Bye-bye.